Welcome to NFL Daily, where it's feeling like Week 18 and Week 16. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. I'm here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with my friends Patrick Claybon and Steve Wyche, back from the road. Good to have you back, buddy.
Good to be back, man. You know, we had some interesting games. Sitting here looking at some of these spreads like, huh? Wait, what?
Yeah, when I say that, it's got a December vibe, this slate. It's a lot of one good team playing one bad team, and the one bad team just made a quarterback change that just makes it feel like where they're just kind of running out the string a little bit. But we have 3 weeks left. We don't have 1 week left. It's weird.
It's the back end preseason right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some guys coming back. Glad to have Steve back because without you, we suffered a loss, Steve.
Oh, no.
Our survivor has no
Who'd you
longer
guys
survived.
Who'd you guys take?
Put the music on. Yeah, we got a little over our skis. We got a little overconfident. We took a team that not only have we not taken in Survivor all year, that Patrick and I actually haven't picked to win a single game all year, thinking we were just hot.
For good reason.
The Carolina Panthers, and they did not go
Whoa.
good for us. I apologized to Patrick, who wanted to go Falcons, and I said I am not taking this Kirk Cousins team right now. Now, Kirk did not look great,
No.
but that would have kept us going, so I apologize.
No,
All right.
we lost as a team, and we didn't have
Exactly.
Dan Campbell says, that he's not buying the whole injury thing. I buy it. When you don't have one of your pieces and you only have 3 of them,
We needed you, Steve.
That's all right. You know, we made it this far without mushrooms growing underneath the pile.
You know what? And I should have said like it's all one bad team, one good team, because the early part of the slate,
Ooh.
the Saturday like teams that are playing on Christmas, but now they're just playing on Saturday before Christmas, like those are pretty spicy.
yeah, very spicy.
Real spice.
We're doing the games chronologically this week, so we will be starting with the Saturday game that a lot of eyeballs are on, the Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs, who are favored by 3. We've seen their quarterback hop up and down and win Super Bowls, hop off the field on one leg, backup quarterbacks get 4th downs. Can they keep it going? The over-under 41.5. It's Noah Eagle, the baby bird, Todd Blackledge, and Catherine Tappan on the call, Greg, where we've seen this Texans defense be great. Can the Texans offense do enough to knock off the Chiefs?
Okay, so that's an NBC production on a Saturday afternoon. That is interesting to me. This is all new territory for us here, and it could be new territory for the Chiefs. Winning a game they need to win with Carson Wentz potentially at quarterback. When we came into the week, I was assuming it was Carson Wentz. As we get closer to Saturday, and they're listing Patrick Mahomes full on the injury report, and he's moving around back there, and he's talking a pretty confident game, it's feeling more, Steve, like we will get Mahomes on Saturday. We don't need to just guess the whole time, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is this. First off, if you watch the quarterback series on Netflix, he does a lot of his training outside of the Chiefs facility, and he's got a Mr. Miyagi who is taking care of his ankles. Remember, Patrick Mahomes sprains his ankles like every other week. And this is a high ankle.
Especially this time of year.
This is his non-injured ankle, by the way. This is clever. He hurt his right ankle, but the camera showed them taping up the left ankle. So this is clever deception by Patrick right here. But I do think he plays. But my thing is whether he's healthy or not, I still like Houston in this game.
Wow.
I was at the Chiefs-Browns game last week, and their offense, the Chiefs' offense, they can't protect. They had to move left guard Joe Thuney out to left tackle. That could change this week if DJ Humphries comes back. But just the fact that his overall protection, Patrick is not trusting what's going on in front of him. In the Cleveland Browns' defensive front is really good, right? So they were getting pressure on him. He was stepping up. The Browns were letting him step up. And we know the Texans got guys who can do that. Patrick, when he had receivers open deep downfield, was overshooting him. Something just did not look right. And this is why I like Houston in this game. I think they feel good about getting back in the win column last week and playing a pretty good overall ball game. I think this is a chance for Houston to kind of get its legs under it and get us kind of excited again about them going into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a defense that bothers people, and Jawan Taylor has been over there the whole time they've made the changes over on the other side. But now it's Danielle Hunter, who's going to be matched up against Jawan Taylor for the majority of this game. And whether with Mahomes and the ankle, whether it's like Mike Mancias, LeBron's trainer, or the guy that was saddled to Tom Brady for such a long time.
Oh, yeah.
The secret to longevity isn't the trainers. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Tom Brady. It's LeBron James.
What about that dude that once spoke to us at the Talent Summit that he was Michael Jordan's
Tim
guy?
Grover.
Or Kobe's guy?
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah.
I know Tim.
Turns out The real key to those scenarios were Kobe Bean Bryant and Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
Okay.
Like the trainer stuff drives me nuts because we have Patrick doing all these workouts and so it's like, he's on a Bosu ball now. If you go out there, your ankle will be pliable like his. No, that's him.
Okay.
I don't know, man. Some of that stuff's a little different.
See,
If that
Steve's
were,
a believer. Patrick's a skeptic.
Yeah, if that were
you're
the case,
filling your normal roles.
Everybody would just be hopping off the field one play and then coming back and winning Super Bowls. Dude is different.
He is different, but he's looking as mortal as I've ever seen him.
Yeah.
Consistently as a pro. I didn't get to watch that game until this morning, so it's really fresh in my mind. That's on the short list of the worst Patrick Mahomes games of all time.
I play well.
That's on the short list of just the worst Chiefs offensive performances, because I'm obviously not putting it all on Patrick Mahomes, but they had 4.2 yards per play. They had 15 drives in that game, which is a crazy amount of drives.
They had 6 takeaways.
You know how many drives included more than 2 first downs? 1.
Yikes.
Out of
I'm about to say
15.
it wasn't many.
And that was the game to me that was the most concerning of all the ones that we've seen. Not that they can't have better weeks and bad weeks, but for them to sink that low, the alarm bell should be off. And now you're going up against a defense, as you mentioned, with the great edge rushers, but is really sound on the back end too.
And the second level.
And I know, yeah, they're not going to have Al-Shaair back, but Kristen Harris is out there and Toto.
Toto's
They had a good game last week.
best defensive players no one talks about.
They are now actually up to number 1 on the season in defensive efficiency. That's according to DVOA. So I was thinking while watching the Chiefs-Browns this morning, man, now you put the Texans in this mix instead of the Browns, who have given up a lot of big plays. Maybe that's why they were big play hunting. Like Mahomes went 3 for 13 on plus 10 throws, 0 for 6 deep. And I thought, now you got to go against the Texans? I don't think the Texans are going to be able to score either. It's crazy that we got Texans-Chiefs on NBC and these 2 great quarterbacks potentially. And I'm taking the under, whatever that is. This thing is going to be 13-9. Neither of these teams are going to score. I have no faith in the Texans offense either. So I definitely think that the Chiefs can win this game and probably will be picking them to win this game if Mahomes starts, because they're just going to win another freaking ugly game. Excuse me.
I mean, cumulatively, they do have a better offense than the Texans, but it's by 1/10 of a point. They scored 23.5 points a game. The Texans scored 23.4 points per game. And it's just in the way that the Texans have done it, especially late this season, like in that win against the Miami Dolphins, like these grind-out drives where 3rd and sometimes 4th down, C.J. Stroud completing passes, where the Chiefs have had to grind things out too, but it feels more reliable. Like they scored that 21st point on that Worthy run, and there's plenty of time to go in the 3rd quarter.
Right.
They don't sniff the end zone
Not
or a
close.
field goal again. And so I take the Texans in this game, not just because of the avalanche of everything and Patrick's ankle. It's just one team I believe can consistently execute something on offense.
I don't.
And the other defense.
I don't. I actually think the Texans are in a worse situation offensively, even than the Chiefs. Because they came out for the first drive last week against Miami. They started doing some of their old concepts. Like last year, it was less shotgun, some play action. CJ's getting rid of the ball on time. Then they got stuffed on or they threw a shot deep on 3rd and 1. They decided to kick a field goal there. I was like, okay, Texans offense, maybe they're back. Rest of the game, they stunk. They were worse than the Chiefs offense last week. They had 180 yards. Like people weren't watching that game as much, but they look lost. CJ Stroud is under fire and not looking comfortable.
He is under pressure.
He made a
man.
couple really nice second reaction plays to score touchdowns, and they took advantage of their red zone trips. And he had a couple magical plays under heat, but they've been bad all season too on offense. So that's why I'm saying 41 is way too high.
Way too high.
I don't know who's going to win this game, but I feel amazing that it's going under 41.
I like Houston, and part of it is also watching the Chiefs. They look due. They look due for what happened to the Lions last week.
Okay.
So
That's true. That is true. They feel very ready
on the press
to get picked off. And the argument for them would be the Texans' defense is the best unit in this entire game. So you have 2 struggling
and that's
offenses.
saying a lot.
Yeah.
Because Kansas City's defense is legit.
Stingley was just crazy last week.
That Texans defense going on the road. Also a good defense on the road on Saturday as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens, who are favored by 6 with an over-under of 45. It is Fox A1, Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, Aaron Andrews, and Tom Rinaldi on the call, Steve, to see Lamar and Derrick Henry try to get revenge against the Steelers team that gave them that loss back in Week 11.
Yeah, a 2-point loss, which is how these games go. That's why I'm seeing this number like, this is crazy. 7 of the last 8 games, neither team has scored more than 20 points, which is why I'm looking at the over-under line.
Yeah.
Right? And then we know Pittsburgh's won, 8 of the last 9. But it's funny, man. That Eagles game we're talking about, the Eagles put it on the Steelers, and everyone now is like, are the Steelers fraudulent? Man, that narrative is freaking blasting over the speakers right now. And I think they're a good team. I like Baltimore in this, not by 6. I do not like the over-under. But here's why. And this is going to sound absolutely crazy coming from me. The fact that Justin Tucker was 5 of 5 on the PAT. I think he might get his mojo back.
Whoa.
He's at home, might get his mojo back, and I think that's going to be important for Baltimore.
I need more than just extra points. But that's
But I'm just saying
35.
Yeah, those extra points are from field goal range. So that's what I'm saying. Those PAT kicks now, he might have gotten his win back. It's going to be another close game.
Okay, that would make me feel better. I want to see them just be more disciplined about preventing the deep ball. And if George Pickens is not playing, that really helps their case. I mean,
They've been better though with Hamilton playing that deep third safety. They've been better, man.
They have. They made a lot of changes coming out of the bye. So that game against the Giants, everyone will just say, okay, it was against the Giants. But they did do a number of things that I think are interesting to watch moving forward. Number 1 on my list, I made a list of what's changed.
Okay.
Roquan Smith, I think the extra week of rest that he had in the bye really helped him. He looked like the old Roquan. Like, he was flying around, and he left that game against the Steelers the first time, and that was when the Steelers scored some points, was when Roquan left. They benched Trent Simpson. That was interesting.
That was interesting.
He's gone. It's Chris Board now. They're playing some more safeties. Marcus Williams, they came out of the bye with him as a healthy scratch. And so they've kind of made their decisions on who's going to be playing in their back end. At cornerback, it's the young kid Wiggins.
Who's
and
fantastic.
Brandon Stevens back out there. I trust them. They made a change at punt returner too. Desmond King. They've had some troubles with the punt returns. He had a couple nice plays. These little things that gives me hope as a guy who wants to see the Ravens close strong like you, Patrick. That maybe this is the old Ravens magic. Because I got to check the numbers on this, but I swear they're the best team at improving in December, like in the entire NFL. Now that the old like Brady Patriots are gone, they do it every year.
The Rams
are there too,
now.
but they always just do these little moves, and maybe these are the moves that get it done. I think the defense was improving even before the bye.
Well, and that's the thing, right? With the franchises and the historically looking back, it's front offices and coaching staffs that have been together for a long time. They know how to go through this personnel process, and they're on the same page with it. And we had Zach Orr coming in as the new defensive coordinator, and things took time, right, to work out how they go about defending these teams. And ultimately, without George Pickens, it's a fundamentally different Steelers offense, not just against Baltimore, really against anybody, because you're asking now Mike Williams and Calvin Austin to do George Pickens things that really, right, he's unique in more ways than one. George Pickens, and I think in the AFC North Hard Knocks, you get a different look at all the many ways that George Pickens is different. But it comes down to how healthy is T.J. Watt after leaving this game, because Lamar's consistent struggles against this team are directly related to number 90. When things get dicey and Lamar is out on the edge, there's so many players that he can make look like fools. TJ's not one of them.
No,
they do a great job kind of limiting him going outside.
It's a great strategy. T.J. Watt, look, let's not forget they've got Preston Smith there. They made a great trade. There's some subtle trades and things like this that we aren't really recognizing as much. Preston Smith has helped out. Nick Herbig can go on either side. Mm-hmm. Alex Highsmith is back. Now, you're never going to replace T.J. Watt, but strategically what they've done, it has worked. And so, but to get back to your changes about Baltimore, Greg, you know what they did? They got faster on defense. Even though Trenton Simpson could run, he was confused with some of the calls. I think with Roquan, they were asking him to do too much, man. Some of the coverage stuff they were asking him to do was like, come on, man, that's tough for anybody, a Brian Urlacher type of thing to do. You get faster on the back end. Something's been going on with Marcus Williams all year because he's been in and out of the lineup. But they're faster. They needed to improve that speed because teams were taking advantage of it early on.
That's a great point. And on offense, their number one concern is their offensive line still. I actually believe their guards in pass pro, like against the best teams, are going to be a problem. They actually struggled, I thought, against the Giants. You wouldn't have known it, but those big guys, like, they're not good pass protectors. But what they did was they got a little heavier. They went really heavy on the 2 tight ends. Not that they don't do that normally, but they cranked it up to about their highest that they've done it all year last week. And I think that's having their best players on the field, Likely and Andrews, at the same time. So we'll see if they stay as heavy. And our friend Hytham behind the glass supporting us as our teammates gives me the stat that Lamar Jackson is undefeated as a starter after week 15 in his career.
Oh.
12-0. So they really do.
That's a strong stat
They
now.
really do improve late in the season, and I think they keep it going. I think they cover the 6, too.
Wow.
Let's go.
I'll take that.
I don't.
I mean,
don't.
we're not allowed to do.
You just said the guards aren't playing well, and Cam Hayward's playing better than any D tackle.
I just believe there's one team that has by far the highest explosive play rate in the NFL. It's not even close. Like the Ravens are, they're just explosive. And another team that if they don't have Pickens, they don't actually run the ball well. People just say that for some reason.
They don't.
But they don't.
They don't.
So you're going to have to move the ball down the field slow. I don't see it.
Yeah.
I think it's like a 10-point game. It's nothing crazy.
Boy,
but
if the Ravens win, though, I mean, that shakes up the AFC nicely. That puts them in striking range to get that division.
We want to talk about those AFC contenders that are playing on Saturday. They're all 4 of them. The Steelers, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and Texans will be back because they're flip-flopping. The one team that played the other team on Saturday is playing the different team. It's like a little in-season tournament. Shout out to the Cup champions this week in the NBA. Chiefs, Steelers, and Ravens, Texans, Christmas Day on Netflix. Let's go to our next game.
Actually, if you're watching on YouTube here, Patrick, I just wanted to point out the promotion out there for Netflix. It's got all the biggest names in the industry. Ian Eagle, Greg Olson, J.J. Watt,
Nate Burleson.
Stacey Dales is in the mix.
Khan.
And then who is on that big promotion? NFL Daily's own Steve Wyche. Now, he might not, list himself that way, but that's how I list him. NFL Daily's own. Steve Wyche is on that promo with all the big hitters, like Gene Steratore is on that.
Is that a Connect 4 promo?
It could be.
I mean, it really does look like it, doesn't it?
Drew Brees is on there. I think he's doing the international broadcast with Hansen on Netflix. So
My guy
very
Manti
cool.
Te'o is
Very
there?
cool that you're going to be on
very fortunate,
the
yeah.
Netflix
Down in
coverage
Houston.
on Christmas. How does the wife feel about that? The family, is she going down there? You going to celebrate?
My wife will
Christmas
not be
there?
going down there.
Okay.
All of our kids will be home. So
Sorry about
there'll be some FaceTimes. It's all good. I've covered the NBA. I've had to work Christmas days for years. My kids are grown, so it's more important for some other.
So you're not going to do like a fake Christmas like I do every year before my family leaves me?
No.
'Cause that's what we do.
There's nothing
not
fake.
fake.
There's nothing fake about this, dude, Greg. I'm all 100.
Okay.
If you're doing it, it's not fake. It's legitimate. Who says the day doesn't have to be the day? People celebrate on not their birthdays all the time. It was not Kirk Cousins' birthday at all.
Ooh.
Nor was it the birthday of any Giants quarterback at all in 2024. So we're going to get Drew Lock against Michael Penix Jr. in Atlanta, Greg. The over-under 42. It's the Falcons with their quarterback making his first ever start as an 8.5-point favorite. Kevin Klugler, Moose Johnston, and Laura Oakman on the call. We had said it was going to be the last game for several weeks. You called it after the last game for Kirk Cousins. Now it's the rookie with a chance to get some experience against the Giants.
Yeah, the bar is so low. And I don't think we need to talk about this game too much. Although,
No.
with Drew Lock, I give the Giants a better chance to be competitive than they would have been with Tommy DeVito. And 8.5 is crazy. I mean,
It went down. It went down
That's
after the
crazy.
quarterback change. It was 10.
I know.
Why?
Yeah, why? Penix.
I don't know.
Penix improves him. So let's just talk Penix this whole time because it's a fascinating that they did make the decision. I thought the way Cousins played kind of left them almost no choice. They owed it to the rest of the team. They still have an uphill battle to make the playoffs, but you can do 2 things here. You can get a little peek at Penix and help his development, and I think it gives you a better chance to win games because Cousins was playing that poorly.
Yep.
What do you think it means for Cousins' future? Let's just start there. It's hard to imagine him playing for the Falcons ever again unless Penix gets hurt in the next 3 weeks?
Well, I mean, he's got a no trade clause, right? So we're looking at the Russell Wilson situation all over again. Will they move him and pay for his salary for someone else? That could happen. Remember, they ate. What was the number for Matt Ryan? Remember, they ate that type of cap space to move Matt Ryan. So the Falcons front office is not afraid to make a move like this.
Man, but they just did that.
They just did it, but they've signed their younger players to long-term deals. I mean, they're pretty well situated cap-wise, and that number's going to be there anyway. And they've got his backup on a rookie deal. But I think for Cousins, there'll probably be some teams. I think he'll waive it. What's interesting to note about this scenario, he could have done this with Minnesota. They're going to draft a quarterback. He wasn't really happy about that thing. Well, he wasn't really happy about this. So I think you're realizing that Kirk might not be too cool being a backup to Michael Penix. So I think he will be somewhere next year. It'll be interesting to see if he's a starter. I think he could be kind of the pickup guy after all the other pieces have been drafted.
Why? I mean, I guess you could convince yourself that maybe he'd be healthier a year, more removed from the surgery. But he's also older and 37.
Yeah, it's almost like, would you take him over Daniel Jones? I mean, that's kind of where, right? I mean, that's kind of where I think some of that conversation could go. I mean, a lot of people would, a lot of people wouldn't.
You're sitting next to one. I would gladly take Kirk. People are doing the comparison, right? Because Aaron is 41,
correct,
and Kirk Cousins is 36, and it feels like simple math. Aaron Rodgers' Achilles injury happened 3 months before Kirk Cousins did.
Right,
and Kirk Cousins. It's very difficult. Like we could talk like the state of health. It's very difficult to become healthier playing in the National Football League.
True.
And so I really think with more time removed, Kirk Cousins, like long-term viability, I mean, in the next 3 or 4 years, I think at a certain point he will get closer to being the Kirk Cousins that we know. This version is still clearly dealing with something.
What's interesting, though, Patrick,
move.
What's interesting, though, when people say that is 6 weeks ago, we weren't talking about that. He was Kirk O'Chains.
We were a little bit on this show. We were saying we were so impressed that he was doing it despite the limitations.
And I remember
something got worse.
And I think Patrick brought up a stat like he was only had the least amount of movement, like 1.5 yards in the pocket. So that part was there, but you saw there was some stuff. He was stepping into his throws. I don't know if there was a lack of confidence, but he's throwing wiffle balls out there. I mean, those balls pop out of his hand and they die after 5 yards. They were having to throw the ball between the numbers because he couldn't get it outside. Teams knew that. That was leading to all the interceptions. That's why they had to make a move. But I think Patrick, it's an interesting point because I do think he will get healthier. Does he want to? I mean, does he want to?
Oh, I bet he will. So,
the money's going to be there. I mean, he's got a significant paycheck coming. I think he will too.
So Michael Silver, our old coworker, I saw him talking about that. All his old coaches are fascinated by him still, and that there will be a market for him. And I had my doubts, but now you're making the case, Patrick, that there's always a market for a quarterback. But I sent a couple texts yesterday about this when it happened, and I thought, maybe Kirk actually, would Kirk ever actually be okay being the backup to Penix? It's not that crazy. Like, if you've already got him under contract, you have a good number 2. And they were like, are you high? There's they thought there's no way he is not going to be happy. He is, they were surmising, but they just did not think he would be okay with that scenario, and that is essentially what you're saying too.
We're on the verge of watching Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, after playing on that woeful Carolina Panthers team, start playoff games.
Yeah,
in which their teams and fan bases believe that they give them the best chance to win. We saw Peyton Manning come back from that neck injury where there's like Zapruder film of him throwing and training, and all of a sudden the whole league's like, all right, we're back in. I just don't think it's that difficult to believe that Kirk Cousins can be significantly better than the one.
I'm glad you're presenting that side of the argument, even though even though I don't see it. I think it's just closer to Matt Ryan in Indianapolis, that when you see something like that, and it was why we felt confident, why I felt confident on the show, like they are going to bench him. I don't care about the money. Like when you see that, they're not coming back from that. They're just, I think it was more of a, whatever he needed, because he was always a confident player. He'll always be willing to rip the ball. He had totally lost it this year. Maybe you get that confidence back, but that was as important to me as what he lost in terms of his movement. Let's give a little love to Penix, though. What do we think? What do we think he's going to look like the next couple of weeks? He's a fascinating prospect, and I'm really glad they drafted him. for
Yeah,
Falcons
they
fans'
look
sake.
smart for drafting.
I think they were smart at the time because you always got to invest as much as you possibly can in quarterback until you're sure you got one. And they couldn't have been sure they got one with Kirk Cousins.
Well, they paid Kirk Cousins $100 million.
I know.
That was the issue. There's not them drafting Penix. It was drafting him after signing Kirk.
I get it, which was bad process. I have heard speculation. I'm wondering what you think, Steve, as an insider, that there's a chance once the Falcons got Kirk in the building that they were a little more skeptical of where he was at physically, and that it impacted that you really couldn't have had as much knowledge of where he was at physically before the trade.
I mean, that might be, to me, I think that might be hindsight. Because remember when they did this, Kirk's our guy. They draft Penix. He's our guy.
Yeah.
So if they had any questions about it physically, they sure weren't tipping their hand. Plus, Michael Penix has not been getting first-team reps.
True.
He has not been getting first-team reps. When you watch an NFL practice, your starter gets 98% of the reps. So they're going to have to on a four. Like, I think he's going to know the playbook. It's just the operation of things. And this is where a guy's playing 5 years in college is going to help him. He's going to understand coverages. He's going to understand how the game flow is supposed to go. So I think that's going to help. And they're going to be able to throw the ball outside of the numbers. He can rip it. You talk to people down there, they're like, we didn't show him. Remember, he only played one preseason game. We didn't show him in preseason because that arm is a beautiful thing to see. And we didn't want one. I spoke to Raheem about this. We didn't want to see show other teams that arm, but I don't think they wanted to show their fans that arm.
Ooh.
Oh.
Because they would have been calling for this change a lot earlier than it happened.
That would be even worse process.
Oh, we are talking about the one-winged bird. There aren't two wings on that falcon on the helmet, Pat.
They are
flying in
suddenly
circles for a long time.
Yeah, that's
It's great.
that is amazing. We suddenly have one of the most interesting parts of the last 3 weeks, though, is Michael Penix starting this game. So just as an unbiased observer, like, I'm kind of happy to have this. We needed some injection of interesting storylines into the end, and
that division too.
And this is a very winnable game. And then next week they have a game against another contender. I'm forgetting who it is now off the top of my head. I'll check, but they're in the mix.
Yeah, they just need some help from the Dallas Cowboys, and they're right back in it with an opportunity. And watching the Giants, my favorite player ever was playing the Giants. Had 5 touchdowns last week. I could barely stand to watch it still.
By the way, they're on Sunday Night Football next week. That was what I was thinking, against the Commanders.
Oh. Yes.
And they actually could, even in a scenario where if they can win this week, they could actually get into the wild card race, even if the Bucs keep winning to win the NFC South. If the Commanders lose this week to the Eagles, and then they can beat them heads up next week, then it just makes for an interesting stretch run. And frankly, he's my type of quarterback that I've been wrong about and right about before.
He's left-handed?
No, like big arm, anticipation, throws from the pocket. Like, to me, he's like Herbert on the high end, Jameis maybe in the middle lower end, like Mike Glennon in the middle. Cutler would be a better example. Cutler. Give me Cutler, but he cares. That would be a great player.
And it's no longer Jay Cutler.
real quick, and this is from the Patrick Claybon hole of destiny, right? I tweeted it yesterday. Michael Penix gets named starter, and what else happens on that day? Michael Vick gets named the head coach at Norfolk State. So 2 left-handed Falcons quarterbacks leading their programs in new directions. You like that?
I love it.
It's predestined.
Yeah. It's symmetry. And we interrupt our Atlanta Falcons podcast to get to the Arizona Cardinals. 4.5-point favorites on the road against the team that sunk our survivor picks last week. The Carolina Panthers, the over-under 47, Chris Myers, Mark Schlereth, and Jen Hale on the call. All the positive vibes, Steve, from the previous vibe boosting but still losses went out the window.
Yes, it did.
For Carolina. How do they perform against the Cardinals team that still has a little bit of hope as well?
Yeah, I think, with Arizona getting back in the win column against, bad Patriots team last week, this could be a competitive game. That 6.5, or I'm sorry, that 4.5 number. I like it for Arizona. I think this is one where James Conner, he goes over 1,000 for the season. They pound the ball. They kind of get back to where they were a little bit, not relying so much on Kyler. And I think Carolina with that, they did more than stub their toe last week. I think that just kind of, they've plateaued. And, if Arizona gets up on them quickly,
maybe they'll respond. I think it's
They could.
I think
They
it's an
could.
important month for Bryce to continue his progress in the program to continue it. They were due, I guess, to have a bad week, and they certainly had one.
Bad week.
Well, I just mean they've been competitive in all these games. I think looked like a real NFL team, and then last week they went back to their worst habits. I went through a lot of the playoff scenarios. Okay, to make the case for these teams that feel like they're a little on the outside looking in. Arizona wins a 3-way tie in the NFC West if they all go 10-7. Now they got to win out to do that, but they have two division games, the Rams and the 49ers, that'll help them. So they would, if it's Seahawks, Cardinals, and Rams at 10-7, Cardinals win the division. They also win the two-way. If it's a two-way tie with the Rams, assuming that they beat the Rams on Saturday night on NFL Network next week, which is that's their do or die game. Every game is basically a do or die game. But it's not that crazy of a route.
No.
Basically, win these next two games in Carolina and against the Rams, and they might be in the driver's seat 2 weeks from now. So even though I was not convinced by them last week. They didn't make me feel any better or worse about them the way they played against the Patriots. And Kyler had an okay game, nothing great, but they have an opportunity here. It's still all right in front of them. By the way, Budda Baker.
How about that?
Got a nice little contract extension.
Yeah, he should.
His third contract. Well done by him.
Third contract. That is tough to do.
David Mulugeta represents him, man. David gets all his guys taken care of.
And the search bar, it's gotten some reinforcements.
Yeah.
We got Baron Browning. I mean, that's a guy people actually do know.
Mm-hmm.
And then their first-round pick, Darius Robinson, played a lot last week. So, and they just gave a guy a big contract, Budda Baker. The search bar might graduate from the search bar at some point.
The links are going to be purple because everybody's going to have seen.
All right, we are just getting going here on NFL Daily. We got a lot of games to get to. We're gonna hit some fun ones after the break, including the Lions. See if they can bounce back this week. Back on NFL Daily, Patrick, before you set up this next game,
Okay.
can you just remind me what the quote you read to me from Kirk Cousins during the break was? Because it was beautiful.
So he did call Michael Penix Jr. They asked him at his availability why he called him, and he said, quote, "I like to shoot elephants in the room, so I just wanted to shoot one." And they said he couldn't execute the big game, but there he is.
Well done.
Oh!
Nicely played.
Good job.
Nicely played.
Shoot the elephant in the room.
Oh, my God.
And then he circled back to it. I like to shoot elephants wet.
Hey, man, that's poaching. Can't do it too much, Kirk.
Oh, Cousins.
Oh, Kirk.
How we love thee. Yes, that's a look back, but let's look forward to the Detroit Lions. The very, very injured Detroit Lions, but still very, very good. 6.5-point favorites in Chicago against the Bears with the over-under of 48. Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma, and Megan O'Leary on the call. Coach Campbell said, Greg, he's not buying the injury stuff. It's going to be tough. No more David Montgomery for the rest of the season. Ali McNeil, hoping to get good news on Carlton Davis. It's not going to matter against the Bears, but what can they show you that they can get it done without those guys?
Defensively, I just think they want to stabilize and have a positive performance. As banged up as they are, and losing McNeil is huge for that defensive line.
Huge.
They still do have Zadarius Smith, and they got, for everyone, talking about the injuries last week, they did get Onwuzurike and DJ Reader back on the field. So that's 3 starters there on your defensive line. Jack Campbell and that linebacker group behind him, that's really where opposing teams are going to make them pay. I don't know if the Bears are the team to do that, but just to play devil's advocate a little bit, you still have a creditable defensive line and some really good players in the secondary. Like, I don't think hope is lost. And, oh, by the way, maybe the number 1 offense in the league, which they'll be okay without Montgomery. Like, he's a big loss, but they'll be okay. They'll be great.
I'm with you. I think Detroit overcomes it, at least to win the NFC North. I think they're going to go ahead and win the division just because they can score, which is why I think that over-under line is what it is at 48, because I don't think the Bears are hanging 25 on them. But, at some point, playing the type of football they like to play, where they can go down and grind out 10 and 12 play drives. When teams start doing that to them because of some of the injuries that they have and the lack of depth they have, that's where it's going to catch up to them. But in the short term, I think they're still too explosive and just too creative offensively to really fall off right now.
Yeah, it's going to be more volume for Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously. I guess Craig Reynolds slides in. He has the most Jared Goff actually has the third most carries on the team. But then you go down to Craig Reynolds as far as at the running back position. So he comes in, he fills up nicely the role that I think it hurts the offense. But over on the defensive side of the ball, even when they did have everybody, it's not like the Lions were shutting people down on defense. I think back to the shootout against Geno, one of many shootouts against Geno that the Lions have had in the past few years, where they've had to score in the past, and they can still do that. It's not a problem against Chicago, but I think we're going to learn a little bit about this team in this game in terms of how they approach a game against a team that they're significantly better than. The loss against Buffalo, Buffalo's still a very good team with a generational quarterback.
Right.
It gives a lot of defenses problems.
Might just be the Super Bowl favorites on a neutral field.
So
the Buffalo Bills.
It's not. I feel like there's this tendency because we want so much from the Lions, and it's been such a great story to feel like this is it. This is over. This is still one of the best.
Yeah, their fans haven't been in this position, and I saw some of the reaction online to their great beat writer, Colton Pouncey, and he's answering questions from the fans, and they're like, well, what even hope do we have left? Is it over now? And it's like, no, you guys lost the game, and you've had an incredible amount of injuries that is going to make this path tougher. But let's not get it twisted. You're still one of the favorites. You're still one of the 5 teams, 5 or 6, that if you're hosting, you're winning the Lombardi in a couple months, that I won't be surprised. Because Jared Goff has never played better. I am convinced he's
balling.
Absolutely peaking. So your quarterback is peaking. You have playmakers on defense, but you have even more of them on offense, and the continuity, everything is there for them. This is one of my favorite picks of the week, is them -6.5. I will be putting it out there with Cynthia on our man versus machine picks, because I think great teams respond. I think Caleb Williams is a little lost at sea right now.
Yeah.
And even though the Bears defense competed really well, it's a division game. This game was close on Thanksgiving in the end. I just think great teams respond, and they'll respond in this game.
Yeah, I agree. I can't wait to that Week 18 game to them and the Vikings. I mean, that could be for the division, could be for top seed. So, I mean, they're going to have to play all the way through. They've got to stay healthy all the way through here.
Go to our next home team, a 7.5-point favorite at home, the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Cleveland Browns. Greg mentioned, Steve, the very reasonable path for a team like the Arizona Cardinals. The Bengals need an incalculable amount of help. It's absolutely insane. We saw Joe Burrow's frustrations, even in the win against the Tennessee Titans. The Browns are going to be starting DTR, Spiro Dedes,
Love it.
Adam Archuleta, and Aditi Kikabwala on the call. The over/under is 47. What do we?
Is it that crazy a path, though? Okay, let's put it out there.
Oh,
let's put it out there here, Patrick. You win this game against the Browns. Now, the Thursday night game, which some of you maybe have even watched by the time you listen to this, it's so important for Cincinnati, the Broncos-Chargers game. You could look at it 2 different ways. You could want the Chargers to lose because they'll be easier to catch, but they lose the head-to-head against the Chargers, so you actually would need the Chargers to lose another game after that and win out, and the Chargers have 2 quite winnable road games. You could look at it the other way and look at where the Broncos are at right now. They would have the head-to-head over the Broncos. If the Bengals could win out, the Broncos lose on Thursday night. Then next week, they play against the Broncos. The Bengals play the Broncos in Week 17. That's a really big game, and you could take out the team that's right in front of you, and the Broncos finish with the Chiefs. We don't know if the Chiefs are going to be playing for the 1 seed or not, but there are a couple paths that aren't that crazy. To me, that's not crazy to see either the Broncos lose out or the Chargers lose a couple games here. It's not over. It's not over.
No, I mean, the only challenge is Cincinnati winning out.
Yes.
I mean,
they're sloppy as hell. Good point.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's an issue.
I've been making that point all year. Thank you. Good point. Sorry.
Penalties, negative plays.
Yes, you're right.
I mean, look, this week, first off, I don't like that number. What is the number?
7.5. But they're playing DTR.
They're playing DTR, but Cleveland's defense is good, man. I mean, you talked about how they held Kansas City to 21 points with 6 takeaways. That defense, guys in the secondary are playing well. They're competing. I mean, they've got some pros on that side of the ball. They should beat DTR, but who knows if he pulls it down and starts running on him and doesn't give it away. I mean, Cleveland, their speed on the offense isn't there in the run game. Well, Jerome Ford had the big hit last week, but it's just with Cincinnati. They still, I mean, it is the Burrow and those 2 stud wide receivers. Everywhere else, they just keep making so many mistakes just when you want to buy into them. Like, gosh, these guys are self-destructive. I love that scenario you rolled out. I don't see the Chargers or the Broncos making the mistakes that the Bengals do when it comes to winning ball games and not beating.
Well, at least win this game, and you give yourself another week to go to that Broncos game and, Joe Burrow do something
that would be awesome,
extraordinary. And you're right. Watching them have, I think it was like 12 penalties and 4 turnovers against the Titans, it's not going to inspire a ton of confidence. That's fair.
I think the problem with the one path, right, other than the most significant issue being the Bengals, is you get in a situation where you're relying on a Carson Wentz-led Chiefs team that's sitting everybody. Like Chris Jones going to be playing in that game. No Mahomes. Probably get Hollywood
Maybe,
back.
though. Like, not if you guys are right and the Chiefs are going to lose this week against the Texans.
Okay.
Then they will be playing for Week 18, most likely. So just saying.
There's a chance.
One of these is going to hit. One of these one of the
There's
teams
always one.
right now that is around 13% and lower. There's about 5 or 6 teams between the two conferences. One of them's at least going to get to Week 18 with a real chance, and maybe it'll be the Bengals.
There was a team last week that had a chance to be in this discussion, but absolutely melted down. It's the Indianapolis Colts. They are at home in the division, 3.5-point favorites against the Tennessee Titans. We'll start Mason Rudolph, Tom McCarthy, Jay Friedley, Ross Tucker, and our dear friend Tiffany Blackman on the call, Greg, where we've finally seen the results of this season-long Will Levis experiment, and the results are back to Mason Rudolph. Meanwhile, the Colts would like to have that one back. They lost their season.
They would, but they actually have a higher percentage chance of making the playoffs. See, everyone just wants to cross these teams out because it just feels like it's better.
Yeah, but you're so analytical, man. Watch just some of the dumb stuff some of these teams do where you have no faith, and that's where we're coming from, Greg.
I don't think they're good. I just think they have the easiest schedule in the NFL the last 3 weeks. If you could construct this schedule that did not include the Patriots, and maybe the Patriots wouldn't be in this mix, could you come up with an easier 3-pack of games than home for Tennessee, at the Giants, home for Jacksonville? I actually think even if they don't make the playoffs at 9-8, and they're in one of the scenarios I laid out for Cincinnati, and I was playing with the playoff machine last night, actually they didn't get in because Indianapolis gets in at 9-8 over Cincinnati. I'm just saying they have a chance. Even if they don't get in, I actually do think 9-8 and Anthony Richardson plays competent football the last 3 weeks against these 3 bad defenses will make the offseason feel different, feel better than it does right now. So I do think these late season games matter whether you make the playoffs or not.
I get that point, but if they lose this game, I mean, Tennessee.
Well, that's big.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee is just such a wild card. I mean, some days they can get you inspired. I have no faith in them right now. But if the Colts don't win this game, it's like you're going to look back on Jonathan Taylor, that fumble, wow, that's what broke our backs. And to me, that goes to you maybe aren't as mentally tough as you need to be. I do like Indianapolis in this game. Tennessee's packed the bags. We talked about it at the start of the show, man. There's some teams.
Yeah.
We're in the
That's what I mean.
Final 3 preseason games.
Richardson's so hard because that first drive he had last week where he had a couple just beautiful throws, and then they call the read option, and he just looks like a faster Cam Newton out there, and and he throws really difficult middle of the field throws. He's so hard to take down, but it's just not consistent.
No, it's not. And even on the drive, right, where he steps through a defender is gator rolling on his ankle, and Richardson just pulls away.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
Just he's playing with his cousins, his baby cousins are in the backyard trying to. It's no, I will not be sacked. And then a couple plays later has an inexplicable turnover. It's up and down. That's the nature of the Colts, but perhaps not out of it. As Gregg Rosenthal says, there's always a chance.
It's a real chance. It's a real chance.
NFL optimism daily.
A chance to see two really good quarterbacks, a couple of the best of their generations, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, not favored at home against Matthew Stafford and the Rams, who are favored by 3.5 points. Kevin Harlan, Trent Green, Melanie Collins on the call. The Jets got a win that they desperately needed.
Oh, man.
Still came down to the wire. Can they be the spoiler against the Rams, Steve?
Well, they absolutely can be the spoiler. I mean, if they play to some degree like they did last week on offense, I mean, Devontae Adams is fantastic. Better beat Garrett Wilson. Otherwise, more problems are coming because that's very talented. But, you know, they look like a legit football team against a football team that has also packed their bags in Jacksonville Jaguars. That's two from the AFC South who've already gone fishing. But I just think the Rams, man, the way they're playing, the way they're running the ball, as physical as they're playing on the offensive line up front, those young dudes up front on the defensive front, we can't stop talking about them enough. They have not hit a rookie wall. They have built a rookie wall. I love the way they're playing. Some of the stuff they're getting out of the kicking game as well, special teams. I just think the Rams are playing too well. I mean, the Jets can go out and play a really good game. I think Stafford and this Rams, all three phases, are one of the most dangerous teams. And if they get in, that's the team you don't want to face.
Absolutely. And although the NFC's filled with them, it's a really deep, compelling playoff field where, like, I wouldn't want to play the Packers.
No,
I wouldn't want to play the Bucks. Like these are the teams that are a little. I wouldn't want to play the Vikings. Like they're all. It's
right.
It's going to be a great NFC tournament, especially if the Rams are in it. Just they haven't played their best for what it's worth on these longer road trips. I don't know if this is a trend or just random, but that Saints game, they didn't have any points at halftime. They lost to the Bears early. That was way early in the season, but they lost to the Bears. The Patriots game came right down to the wire. So they haven't done great with these longer road trips outdoors. We'll see. And Aaron Rodgers is unquestionably playing better, looking healthier than he has all season. He rushed for 45 yards.
Led the team
last week. So
Jags.
They're a little more dangerous, I think. And even Sauce Gardner, Jeff Ulbrich said, has played his best 2 games of the season last 2 weeks. That it's like kind of the Sauce we knew. He's playing with better spirit. They're just a little more dangerous, I think, than they were about a month ago. So they got to be careful.
Yeah, it was Sauce Gardner ending the game on an inexplicable Mac Jones throw last week, which is a big part of why the Jets were able to be celebratory and happy as we can celebrate the fact that it's time for Hot Matchup.
Yeah.
Presented by Wingstop. Yes, it's back in the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles, 3.5-point favorites on the road against Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, 45.5, the over-under. Joe Davis, G-Reg, and Pam Oliver on the call. Greg, the Commanders surviving a late push by the Rizzy Saints, where a 2-point conversion was the difference. They are in the thick of a playoff race against the Philadelphia team that dispatched their in-state rival a week ago.
Yeah, and dispatched the Commanders, remember, on that Thursday night football game. That was kind of a 2 teams heading in a little separate directions at that point, where Philadelphia had one of their wins, and they've had a lot like this, where it's close for a while, even though it doesn't feel close, and then they just wear you down. And if you think about what's happened since, Philly's actually had a tougher schedule, and yet they've won all their games. I thought when the 2 teams played against each other again, like that Washington might still be in it, but they really aren't. And quietly, they're not quite the same team that they were before. Noah Brown is out for the season. Austin Eckler, you really feel for him because of that concussion that he suffered, might be out for the season. I'm guessing that he is. And Zach Ertz is in the concussion protocol this week. So they were already a little thin on offense. Their center, Tyler Biotish, was hurt last week as well.
He's back.
He is supposed to play, yeah. So, and Jonathan Allen, their talented defensive lineman, might be back for this game. So that's good. But I look at one team, to me, that other than Jalen Hurts being up and down is, gathering strength almost at every position group, the Philadelphia Eagles. And another that is not improving necessarily, the Commanders, as the season goes on.
I think they're going to give Philadelphia a hell of a game here.
Okay.
Because remember, you talk about that last game, Saquon rushed that's a team they rushed for like 230 yards. Saquon was most of that, hit some big runs late. I think Washington's going to deny some of those explosive plays, and that's going to balance things out a little bit. They were doing some things with Frankie Louvu, a linebacker of that game. I remember they were putting him out on the edge a lot to create some pressure, and that opened up the middle of the field for Saquon. I don't think that's going to happen again. I just think this is going to be a hell of a game. Philly at 3.5. Maybe Philly gets the win. 3.5 might be much. I think Washington and Marshawn Lattimore coming out in his debut and shutting things down. I think he's gonna help this defense. No, I mean I'm just saying. I just think
No. You're right. I'm laughing
saying
about something that
schematically.
happened on this show last week.
Yeah, I'm saying schematically, he's going to allow them to do some things that are going to deny some of those run yards that Philly got last time.
I'm glad you brought that up, Steve, because
boy.
we had a mole inside the Saints building last week, and we actually heard that Mickey Loomis. He said, "I don't care what you guys do in this game, Rizzy. No matter what, you are not throwing it to Marshawn Lattimore.
Oh,
we will not be embarrassed." Okay, we revealed that on the show last week, right? Right, Patrick?
We did.
Why did you trade him then?
that no matter what, we're not letting Marshawn Lattimore have a highlight. He did not have a target
Not
last
one
week. Not
target.
one single target. So our moles, they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, the right way to play a game. Probably best to not have Jake Haener target anybody. And Spencer Rattler
Yeah, right, Spencer.
comes
Good
in
point.
and salvages the game. It makes it somewhat watchable. Where I was skeptical about late season Cliff. Very, very skeptical. We've seen more Terry from the right. He scored another touchdown from the right side of the field last week.
Great play.
Where just being able to utilize one of the best players in the game that we've had for a long time that hasn't seen this level of play from the quarterback position. I mean, we say it, but it's still worth celebrating that Terry gets this opportunity to play with Jaden, and they need him. They need him now. The run game, you mentioned Eckler. Brian Robinson Jr. left the game against the Saints, and so it's all 5 and 17. and those two can do it, but to do it against Philly at this point, the way that Quignon is playing, Cooper DeJean coming on, the season that Bond has had as well, it's just.
And Nolan Smith is getting better every week.
How about
he's
that?
becoming a difference maker for this team. I looked at the numbers since week 7 when there was a little bit of a downturn for Washington in terms of explosive play rate. Eagles 3rd in the league. They've cranked it up, more big plays. A lot of those are runs, too, with Saquon. Washington 25th. So Philly is going to make you work down the field. That's going to be a really big test for Jaden Daniels. Can he be patient and avoid mistakes? He looked good last week, Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and they've got the speed to track him down when he tries to break the pocket. I mean, that's one thing he's got to be cognizant of.
That's our headliner, by the way, for the early games. I like that we have one big one early. Philly and Washington with G-Reg on the call. We are going to be back, and we're going to start talking some late games. My guy Gino needs a bounce back. That's one of the bigger 4:05 games of the year. Seattle always in big 4:05 games. No respect. Oh, yeah. You big Christmas music guy, Steve?
It depends on the day. I don't like to be saturated with it, but nothing like some good Donny Hathaway, every now and then.
It's anything that's not that Waitress's Christmas rapping song and Paul McCartney's Wonderful Christmas
That's
Time.
not a. That's,
That doesn't get the.
that one's
Not just bad Christmas song. In my opinion, a person who knows nothing about music, 2 of the worst songs I've ever heard.
Wow. Hot take, but not really wrong.
What about you, Greg?
I do. As I've gotten older, I've gotten more in the holiday spirit. I grew up not really celebrating Christmas exactly. Like, we would give gifts on the 25th, but my parents are Jewish, and they didn't really want to get behind that. But now I think I'm trying to live out the childhood I didn't have. But my family is not that into it. They almost make fun of me of being like the guy who's trying to get into it. Come on. I mean, they like getting presents.
Just roasting him. Like, you're all about consumerism, Dad.
Not about that, but like going out to the holiday lights and doing all that sort of stuff. Like the kids,
It'll change.
They begged off the holiday lights this year. I was
It'll
like,
change.
all right,
Just have him watch a Netflix game on.
there you go.
That'll be cool.
Walker will be watching from Japan. You can watch it all over the world.
Global.
Look, when I mentioned no respect for the Seahawks at 4:05, just in case, like, there's sometimes some new fans to the mix. Like, 4:05 means you're not in the 4:25 window, which is where they show most of the country. 4:05, they're just kind of trying to bury it in your local markets and have it end, and they're not giving it full respect. So that's why I say Vikings Seahawks, and I think it's just bad luck that that's a Fox game. That should be the game of the afternoon, and yet it's buried there.
Yeah, a team that's contending for not just the best record in the NFC. I mean, at this point, they could be finished with the best record in the entire NFL. The Minnesota
Crazy.
Vikings, 3.5-point favorites on the road, Steve, against the Seattle team that saw Sam Howell, and they needed Geno Smith back in that game against the Packers on Sunday Night Football. Adam Amin, Mark Sanchez, Christina Pink on the call. The over-under 42.5, where you start to wonder, where can the Vikings stutter late in the season? Well, here's an opportunity on the road with Geno feeling better than we thought.
Yeah, it's real tough to play. The practice report seemed good on Geno. And I'm just going to go off a little bit, not on Geno, but, last year when a backup quarterback had to come in for like a half and play, and he was terrible. And after the game, I spoke to a high-ranking executive who said, I never want to see that player in our uniform again. I don't think the Seahawks ever want to see Sam Howell take a snap again. That dude was taking 20 yards, a runway to get it, and he was popping it out 5 yards with problems. They didn't want to ever see him take another snap.
I want to know who the other quarterback was last year.
Can't say it right now. Can't do that. That would be.
You're right though.
That would break confidence.
I follow a lot of Seahawks fans on social media, and there was a lot of curse words being sent towards John Schneider for making the trade to acquire Sam Howell and kind of sell him as a intriguing prospect. They missed Drew Lock. Luckily, Geno Smith, going to be back.
This is going to be a good game, and Minnesota's a 3.5-point favorite. I like it. Seattle's going to play tough this game. This is kind of a good matchup. We know that McDonald was brought in to be kind of the McVay stopper. We know, Kevin O'Connell runs that McVay offense. Sam Darnold was not great Monday night. He was good. It was good enough. But Aaron Jones showed out. The superstar showed out. And I think that's where, the Vikings have the matchup. Their skill players and their superstar players are legit. The guys on the back end are legit. They take the ball away. Seattle's got to be very careful. And if Seattle is not able to get the run game going, and Geno, as much as I kind of mock him to you on quarterback, he's a hell of a player. Like if they've got to lean on Geno, he can win ball games. But against this defense and the different looks they give you, man, Brian Flores in the second half of games is insane with the looks he gives you. It is going to be tough. So I like Minnesota in this game, but I think this is going to be the late game of the day.
Really important for both teams.
Yep.
Minnesota to keep that pole position to win the NFC North. If they win out, they will win the division. Seattle to try to stay right there in the NFC West, or suddenly they have a skid. And Seahawks fans probably feel like, man, we finally felt like we had something, and then the floor just falls out last week. And I felt that way too, but it's like, yeah, that's what 10-7 seasons look like.
Yeah.
You're not going to win every game. This is the first year under this program. They have been streaky, a little up and down, but I don't think just because they looked awful last week against a team that is more talented than them, or at least just better than them, I don't think that means they're done. Their defensive improvement up front, they got it settled down in the second half of that game. I think they can give Minnesota
I do too.
real problems, because I think Minnesota's offensive line is a little overrated. O'Neal hasn't really been playing well. They're not great on the interior. And so I know Darnold's been great under pressure all year. As you mentioned, he wasn't on Monday night, and you would love to just keep pressuring him, stop the run, see if this is an ugly weather type of game. You get Ken Walker back. You get Oluwatimi back, who I wouldn't have thought was such an important player for the Seahawks, but he's their center, and he got hurt right away, and that's destabilizing for that to happen, and he's supposed to return for this game. So I think they will respond. I like them as an underdog, at least to cover. I'm not sure if I'll pick them to win, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Seahawks won this game.
No, not at all. And I think as Mike Mack being the tree stopper and the Shanahan tree, I feel like there's so many times where I don't know if I want to count Matt LaFleur as
part of the tree.
I know he's in the tree, but it's just so different, right? It feels like a departure. Kevin O'Connell feels more in line with the original tree, and maybe we
what is it that he really does that's like a magic sprinkling of this tree? I don't know. Do you think there is something to it?
Yeah. I mean, and look, it does come down to X's and O's. I mean, even though they run...
What is it? Is there anything specific?
There is a communication factor.
Okay.
When you talk to people about Sean McVay and why he's so good, especially late in the seasons, one, they develop guys. And just think about all the coaches they've lost, and they still develop young players. We talked about that. But it's communication. They're like, Sean doesn't just sit in the quarterback's room. Or he goes in here and he makes every player at every position understand why they're doing individually, what they're doing as a unit, what they're doing on that side of the ball, what the team is trying to accomplish. So everybody is invested. And Kevin O'Connell does that as well as anybody, man. They've got a great staff in Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell can do it. Matt LaFleur is the same.
But what does Mike McDonald do that seems to gummy it up?
He's the stopper. He does the stuff kind of like what Fangio did, what Belichick did.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of understands. Let's 5-man and 6-man defensive front of it, and let's just beat the hell out of their offensive linemen. Let's let our linebackers run free and make plays. So they got some smoke on them now.
Okay.
I've officially confirmed my priors on this, Greg. So the Rams line up under center 44% of the time.
Yeah.
The Vikings 50% of the time. The Green Bay Packers line up under center 23% of the time.
They have been different. And
Matt LaFleur is not in the tree anymore.
I love that the Vikings essentially start their playoffs now. They do not play any bad teams the rest of the way. Like they have Seahawks, Packers, Lions, and then playoffs.
Yeah.
And so it's on. And we're going to learn about them, and we're going to learn about this Seattle team. Like there is a tendency, I think, after a game that poor on Sunday Night Football, and it was poor. I mean, they got it handed to them by the Packers. That just like, okay, I guess they're a pretender. It's like, no, that's what 8 and 6 teams look like. The Rams have had those games too. They just haven't had them in the last handful of weeks, and so they just need to respond. Let's go.
Real quick, salute to Patrick Claybon for calling Mike McDonald the McVay stopper. So he's the Ruben Patterson.
Yeah, he's
the Kobe stopper.
The Ruby Patterson. If you want to go, I guess to Michael Petrus. Right, like any number of stoppers who've
Who
gone
is
out there
Michael Petrus stopping?
Well, Michael Petrus was allegedly stopping LeBron at a certain point. That never came to be. Much like Andre Iguodala, who had LeBron have one of the greatest seasons ever, series ever, and somehow got an MVP.
How about Celtics? Tony Allen was kind of an early LeBron stopper.
Tony Allen was
stopping
legit,
a lot of
though,
folks.
Man. Yeah, Tony Allen was a hell of a defensive player.
I could talk association with you guys all the time, but let's get to the only thing that matters, as Gregg Rosenthal has called him several times this season. Drake May and the New England Patriots on the road where the Bills are a 14-point favorite. Vibes immaculate. Josh Allen got engaged to Haley Steinfeld, and since then everything's been coming up Buffalo. 46 is the over-under. Ian Eagle, Charles Davis, and Evan Washburn on the call, but 14 points in the division. I know you're skeptical, Greg, of your New England Patriots. That feels like a lot of points.
Yeah, I think they could cover that. I think there could be a little bit of a letdown factor. It's a weird stretch now. The Bills, after getting through these big games, have the Patriots a couple times. They have the Jets, teams that they're certainly better than, and offensively, they're going to put up 30 plus.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But the reason why 14 is a lot is that you could see Drake May exposing some of the weaknesses that we've seen out of Buffalo if he can just get a little bit of time. And yes, he is the one thing that matters in New England.
He is the one thing that matters. But what about
actually, there's two, him and Christian Gonzalez.
Okay.
It is kind of they do have maybe the best young cornerback and the best young quarterback in the league. There we go. That's something to build off of.
That's something to build, and those are two key positions where at some point you're gonna have to pay him. Boy, yes, Gerard Mayo could come under some smoke this week. My God, he's getting cooked up in that market. By the way, 14, not enough. I think even if Buffalo is off, just because on both sides of the ball, man, both sides of the ball, Buffalo they're too talented. They're playing too well right now. Sean McDermott's, he's not mentioned enough in the Coach of the Year conversation. He needs to start. We need to start dialing that temperature up a little bit. Josh Allen, whatever. James Cook is the guy who's been impressing me in their offense. I mean, it seems like he's hitting 2 or 3 explosive plays off tackle like this every game.
Yeah, and the Patriots cannot defend the run, which is one of the many ways that you can tell they're not as well coached as they were a year ago when they were still a good defense on defense.
There's a chance though for Drake to air it out here because of all the success the Bills have had, they've still given up 84 points in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff, very, very good quarterbacks that were traded for each other. But still, this is a chance for New England to work on this passing game, showcase how gifted their quarterback is, who gets some comps to the guy on the other side. And I think that those comps aren't silly.
They're legit. I like those comps.
Yeah, he's not quite there physically. I mean, who is other than Cam Newton? Quarterback maybe Richardson. I just mean he's just not as big as Josh Allen is. And I don't think he's as risk taking. That's been the thing that has been surprised. I actually thought he was based on his tape at UNC and early this season, but go back in the tape. Find me the negative plays Drake May has made the last couple of weeks. There have not been many bad decisions, bad plays, and I have some numbers that it's going to back.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
Let's get 'em.
I did some next Gregg stats research this morning. Did my own little stuff. Since week 10, it's a pretty long sample size, 5 games. 4th in the NFL in completion percentage, all quarterbacks. 7th in completion percentage over expected. And then here's the one that really gets me going. 4th in success rate in the entire NFL, despite what's around him. That's a minor miracle. The only guys in front of him are Goff and Jared Allen and Josh Allen, and Tua actually was in front of him.
I would never have guessed that. Even if a lot of those come in garbage time, he's still throwing the majority of the game.
He's not taking negative plays. PFF has him 14th. That feels more appropriate to overall, but that's ahead of guys like Baker and Purdy and Mahomes, and just on their individual grading says he's just not making many mistakes, and he's making a lot of really heady plays.
Under a lot of pressure too. Good for him. He's real, Patrick.
He's real. It's fun. It's fun to see. Speaking of fun, the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders, who were favored by 1. The over-under is 16 points, just getting 39.5 points. Andrew Catalan, Tiki Barber, Jason McCourty, and A.J. Ross on the call. It is McCorkle Jones going up against Desmond Ridder, we think. Steve?
Yeah.
Your thoughts on this football game?
Yeah. I don't know how the Raiders are favored, but gosh, man.
Big game for the picks. Here's a dirty secret. I actually wish there was a couple games like this every week. This is the only one because I want to save time on my tape watching, and I do not want to watch this tape.
I know.
I feel comfortable about it. Sorry, Brian Thomas Jr. I love you.
I like the Jags on this. Everything with the Raiders is not great. Even getting kicks blocked, punts blocked, things like that. I think the Jags can. It's
actually the only game like this week between two teams that are totally out of it, which you wouldn't expect because there's a lot of teams that are out of it, but each one is playing like this is the only dead game.
Emphasize the totally out of it part. They've not just gone fishing. They are on the boat in their gear.
And yet if the Raiders win this game and they're favorites,
they're swimming.
Yeah, if they're favorites and they win this game, they could hurt their draft pick quite a bit. Giants are watching this game, and they're saying, let's go Jags. Let's go Raiders. Jags lose it for us.
Not a lot of quit. Not a lot of quit in the Raiders team. We'll see how things go there. We'll move on from that game, which is a joy, to the game that at the start of the season had so much promise, so much in fact that it's Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, and Tracy Wolfson on the call to see the San Francisco 49ers go into Miami against the Dolphins, who are a 1-point home favorite, Greg. The over-under 44.5. They got stung by Derek Stingley's interceptions last week. They remained in that game. They've had some heartbreakers. They've been trying to get back in the picture. How do you view the game?
We couldn't get a better game for CBS in the afternoon window. That's wild. I think people would rather see Josh Allen and Drake May just because Josh Allen is the story in the league right now. So I think they
could have sent him to MetLife.
I think they made
Stafford against Rodgers.
That's true. That's early though. Like I would give Josh Allen that spot, but when they make these decisions a couple weeks ago, I guess they were hoping for some more wins out of these two teams. The 49ers actually, of all the teams that are left, them and the Saints have the lowest chance to make the playoffs. They're right there at 1%. So they have a very good chance to get eliminated this week. I am curious to see how Tua in this offense bounces back because last week's performance was so bad and so out of nowhere after they were what I called on this offense on this show the most consistent unit in the league. They were the exact same every week. You watched the Dolphins, you knew what you were going to get, and it was extremely efficient. That's why Tua was up there ahead, Drake May's success rate. And yet last week, they got it put to him. That was a defensive master class there by D'Amico Ryans and kind of humbled this Dolphins team.
Well, and he humbled the coach who he used to coach with up in San Francisco. Yeah. So maybe there were some things going on right there. Miami's bouncing back this week. I think, look, San Francisco's proud. They're going to go out there. It's going to be a good game, but just too many injuries in the run game. They're talking about Trent Williams is probably done for the season at left tackle for the 49ers. I think Miami's offense gets going. Its defense will do some things against the 49ers. I like Miami plus the 1 point that they're getting.
It's going to be tough. The passing game has to be short. They don't seem to be able to protect Tua long enough to have the deep passing game. And if you want a rush yards over expected stat, the Dolphins have negative 257 rush yards over expected on designed run this season.
No explosives.
They cannot run the ball. They even get Raheem Mostert back in these past couple of weeks, and they haven't been able to do anything on the ground. And it's just all has to be Tua operating quick passes right around the line of scrimmage. It's just tough.
These teams are kind of mirror images of each other when you think about the high expectations on offense, and the offensive coaches. And Kyle Shanahan at least still has that running game. The Dolphins not having a running game is one of the more surprising elements of the year. And I think Tua deserves some blame for last week too. I think people want to put it on just the offensive line and everything, but Trent Green in that game, he never criticizes anything, and he was pointing out some passes that he thought Tua was passing up, not going down the field. And I've seen some other analysts kind of look at the tape a little bit, and even on some plays that he was protected, he wasn't pulling the trigger. And whether it's a coaching point or who knows why, but that is just totally gone from their offense. And so that gives them a small margin for error.
To my early season MVP I'm just joking. I'm not going to talk MV Baker anymore, Greg. It's Sunday Night Football. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4-point favorites against the scrappy late season push by the Dallas Cowboys. 48.5 is the over-under. It's Sunday night. So Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, Melissa Stark on the call. The Cowboys broke our survivor hearts last week. Could they break the hearts of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are playing really good football right now, especially across the street last week at SoFi Stadium?
Tampa's playing well. I like him in this game. Dallas, I mean, they compete. I mean, ever since Micah Parsons has come back, their defense has been good. It sucks about Overshown getting that injury. And I think, Trey Diggs is out. So I think Baker could have another game. Mike Evans is doing it. The run game, getting both those guys going. I like Tampa Bay. I like the points. I don't know if Dallas is going to put up a ton of points. Even the Cooper Rush has shown why they're playing him over Trey Lance. I like the Buccaneers in this game. Go ahead and take another step to winning that NFC South.
It's funny watching that Cowboys game last week. I started thinking like, man, if Dak was on this team,
yeah.
It's funny how that works. You lose a franchise quarterback and you don't have as much hope, but they've actually won a bunch of games now since he's got hurt. Because I went back and I looked. I was like, what games would they have won with him? Yeah, they lost. They got waxed by the Eagles. They got waxed by the Texans. Maybe they would have been more competitive there. Maybe they would have beat the Bengals. That would have been the difference. Because, Micah Parsons makes this pass rush alone one of the best pass rushes in the league. That is how amazing a player he is. He has been my pick in back-to-back seasons before the seasons to be Defensive Player of the Year. It hasn't happened yet, and yet I feel like he is the best defensive player in the league. Like if I could pick
his
one,
impact is so significant.
I still think he's playing better right now. If I could take someone for this week and for the last month than anyone in the league, it is Micah Parsons. Now he wasn't healthy enough that he's going to get considered for that award, but that's how good he is. So who knows? Maybe he could scare up the Bucs. I kind of doubt it.
Well, the issue for Dallas, and I think the one big Dak on and off thing, I don't think the run game ever gets to where it is right now with Rico Dowdle if Dak's playing. Because they wouldn't rely on it.
That's a great point, man.
Week 13, 122 yards. Week 14, 131 yards. And then against Carolina, again, it's Carolina. It's a historically bad run defense, but 149 yards from a Cowboys offense that didn't seem to be remotely interested in being able to run the ball at the start of the year. Now that it's something that they can do, and what a time for it against the Bucs team where it's not a give-up play anymore. Like, they're actually having success running the football.
Yeah, they've been impressive. Really, how that line has come together running the ball.
Right, with
now,
Zach Martin out too.
That'll be hard this week because the Bucs have played better run defense over the last 5 or 6 weeks, and then their blitz rate has gone from like normal Bulls level, which is right at the top of the league, to just insane. They blitzed Justin Herbert 62% of the time last week. That's just crazy, man. And it's working. I don't know, like they've gotten it going a little bit defensively, where they were a below average defense, and now they've gotten to average or better. And it's a lot of it is Levante David, actually.
How about that?
They just blitz him like crazy, and then they are the explosive play machine on offense. They are the NFC's Ravens, which is crazy because Baker's their quarterback. But in terms of just like hitting 40, 50, 30-yard plays, sorry, what that was?
No, they gave Todd Bowles a giggle fit this week because they asked about Baker and his rushing, and they compared him to Josh Allen and Lamar and Jaden Daniels. And Coach Bowles was like, well, maybe not those three. And then he went into a chuckle fit. And he had a good time with that. And then they asked Baker about it, and he described himself with a scrappy runner.
You know what though? He's hit enough big running plays at really important moments. Last week, that big run that he had against the Chargers was an important run in that game, and he's making full field reads. I give him a lot of credit where he'll start on the left. So that's coaching and that's maturation from Baker. He really is a great quarterback, except like he'll make a handful of decisions that you're like, why did he do that? But other than that, like he's been awesome.
And here's how great he's really going to show himself, because he's going to have another offensive coordinator next year too, because Liam Cohen's probably going to be on the short list of a lot of teams to get hired as a head coach next year as well.
I really just want that quote graphic made. He really is a great quarterback.
He really is.
Gregg Rosenthal on Baker Mayfield. We got there, and we've got to our final game of the season. It is Spencer Rattler and the New Orleans Saints on the road against the buzzsaw that is these late season Toyota-thon edition Green Bay Packers, who are favored by 14.5 points. 42 is the over-under. Joe, Troy, and Lisa on the call, as it is Monday Night Football. No doubleheader, and probably, Steve, no shot for the Saints.
They're right now, they are filming so many Christmas packages to run by the time they get to the fourth quarter. Monday Night Football. Look, the Packers, you mentioned earlier, Greg, they are a team you don't want to mess with. Defensively, they are so physical up front. Let's see what Rashawn Gary, linebackers are doing. And then offensively, Jordan Love. Just everything they're going. The run game, this is going to be so tough for New Orleans, a dome team going up here. Spencer Rattler facing some of the looks. But, let's talk a little bit about Josh Jacobs. And what he's been able to do, leading all of these veteran running backs who change teams, who are eating. I'm happy for a guy like Josh Jacobs, because he's finally getting to taste some type of success. He was like Nnamdi Asomugha with the Raiders, like never playing on a team with a winning record, and now he's like, oh, this is what this feels like.
And they, I think, have recognized that he needs to be the foundation of their offense.
Mm-hmm.
Like they came into that game last week and they realized the week before that he wasn't central enough to their opening script, and they made sure it's all about Jacobs. And it's really interesting to see LaFleur and Jordan Love become what I would call a run-first offense. That Malik Willis stretch, I don't know if they would have
really good point.
been like that otherwise, but I think they're a run-based offense in part because of that Malik Willis stretch.
It kind of allowed him to get in a groove as a play caller with this line, which has been together all season. They haven't had a lot of pieces to move around, and Josh Jacobs being a part of that as well, central to the game during that stretch. And then Love comes back, and I don't think he was 100% as he slowly got worked in, and so they had to lean on it a little bit more. And it's gotten to the point where, not in the same way of the Dallas Cowboys, but they realize that this is where they can be successful in running the ball. And they do it in the shotgun. They'll bring Jacobs in around in motion and have him stop. They do the same thing with Love and pistol. It's so many different ways, which is why he's not in the Shanahan tree. Matt LaFleur is his own.
I'm
his own
so glad Patrick was talking about this. What 22%? 22% is all they get under center.
Yeah.
So you're doing pistol, you're doing shotgun, you're doing some offset stuff. That is not easy to do. To coordinate that between an offensive line, quarterback, and run back, because you tip a lot more of your plays when you're in shotgun, right? That's what teams will tell you. Okay, we know in this situation, this is what they like to do. To be able to run out of shotgun is really going to open some things up for what LaFleur can do and this offense can do. So, that's such a great point when you said that 22%. I thought they were under center a lot more, having not watched every moment of every game.
And Love, his numbers, he's only throwing the ball 25 times a week, but he's over 9 adjusted yards per attempt over the last month, which is sky high, which is, higher than Lamar is, who's leading the league in it for the season. So when he throws it, it's become efficient. And one thing I thought watching that last game is it took a minute, but I think they've sort of figured out everyone's roles at receiver. Like Dobbs does what Dobbs does, and he's really good at it. And Christian Watson is adding a lot of value and making big plays, and he'll have one head-scratching play a week for you, but otherwise he's really playing well. And then Jaden Reed is in the backfield with Jacobs, at least lately. They're playing two backs back there, and it's Emmanuel Wilson and Jacobs, or it's Reed and Jacobs, and Reed is doing all sorts of crazy stuff. He's not usually carrying the ball, but they'll let him carry the ball a handful of times too. And so you're right. They throw so many things at you, and it's kind of like these young players, they are growing up. They just happen to be in the best division I've ever seen, or else we talk about them even more, right?
Well, two backs. Now he's back in the Shanahan tree, Patrick.
Yeah, it's
right, but it's two backs out of shotgun, and one of them's a 170-pound wide receiver. It's crazy. On the Saints, just for a second, Rattler, and this is only like a local controversy, but there's been conflicting reports. Ian Rappaport says Derek Carr is very unlikely to return this season.
Right.
There were a local report from Nick Underhill that said Carr was kind of pushing and checking with all these different specialists and thinks maybe he could return. And even the coaching staff said he could play this week. And I think it's unlikely, and maybe the coaching staff is just throwing that out there. It's but why would you go back to Derek Carr right now anyways? Don't we want to take a look at this kid, Rattler? He did some fun things last week.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to some folks this past week, and they're like, Spencer Rattler, so talented. He's got to get his head wrapped around a lot of things, but talent-wise, that's somebody you want to get reps and see if they can handle it.
And Rizzy Ball, man.
They're fun.
We've got a 5-game sample, so if you're thinking about that 14-point line there, we got a 5-game sample, and we have 3 wins out of Rizzy Ball, and we have 2 other very competitive games against teams in the NFC that are right now in the playoffs, the Rams and the Commanders. So maybe that's a little high. Maybe Rizzy Ball keeps them close. We got Cam Jordan out there making a lot of plays. Our podcast NFL
Davis looking great.
Friend, yeah, let's go.
with significant injuries.
Right.
On both sides of the ball.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're finding a way. I would stay away from that. I wouldn't want to deal with the
14.5?
stress of a December 23rd Spencer Rattler situation, but I would just stay away. Stay away. Just chill with your family.
Leave it alone.
Enjoy it. That's it. That's it for our show today. Wyche, Patrick, you've done it again. Steve,
No survivor pick, though.
no survivor pick.
We didn't survive. That's why.
Look, I don't think Steve's with us next week. So when
But watch me on Netflix.
right when it's the last Steve Wyche game before Christmas or podcast, football is back. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Enjoy Christmas, Steve.